مساكم الله بالخير مشاهدينا الكرام، احييكم في هذه الحلقه الجديده من برنامج تحت المجهر. حلقتنا اليوم علميه وراح تكون استكمال لحلقتنا الاولى اللي استضفنا فيها من تورونتو الدكتور ايزاك بوغوش، احد ابرز اللي صنفتهم مجله فوربس الامريكيه كاحد المختصين في مجال ابحاث الكورونا. سعينا ايضا ان نكرر اللقاء معه مره ثانيه بناء على طلبات عديده وصلت لنا في البرنامج ان نحتاج ايضا استضافه ثانيه ونطرح مع الدكتور ايزاك مواضيع ثانيه. لذلك اليوم ان شاء الله الحلقه راح تكون مع الدكتور ايزاك بوغوش، لكن في البدايه خلوني ارحب مجددا بزميلي اللي راح يشاركني في تقديم هذه الحلقه، الاستاذ المشارك في كليه الطب بجامعه الكويت الدكتور محمد جمال. دكتور محمد مساء الخير.
مساء النور اخوي ابو عبد العزيز.
حلقتنا اليوم نقدر نقول انها هي الجزء الثاني ان شاء الله راح يكون اللي حلقتنا الاولى اللي بديناها مع الدكتور ايزاك بوغوش. اليوم عن شنو راح نركز؟ احنا
ودنا اليوم نركز على التعامل السياسي والاجتماعي مع الازمه، الاجراءات الاجتماعيه من تقليل التباعد، من زياده التباعد الاجتماعي وما اشبه، تجارب الدول المختلفه مع هذه الامور ونتائجها وانعكاس ذلك على تجربتنا في الكويت. اعتقد راح نستفيد والمشاهدين يستفيدون اذا تحدثنا عن هذا مع الدكتور.
ان شاء الله. احنا اتصور دقائق على ما يجهز الاتصال ان شاء الله مع الدكتور ايزاك. خلينا نشوف بشكل سريع جدا هالتقرير ونرجع إن شاء الله نبدأ حلقتنا. Dr. Isaac, good evening.
Good evening.
We are glad to have you again in this show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back. I really look forward to chatting with you.
Thank you. First of all, we would like to discuss with you the different approaches taken by different countries. In particular, we would like to focus on Denmark and South Korea as they did so well. Could we start with Denmark first? What is the situation there?
I mean, Denmark, if you look at Denmark relative to the rest of Europe or other parts of Europe, they've been doing relatively well. And I think the key thing with Denmark is there's nothing fancy, there's nothing unusual. They just took this very seriously from the beginning. And they really adhered to physical distancing measures rapidly. And they've applied this consistently. And I think one of the other key approaches here is that there seems to be good population buy-in. It just looks like people are adhering to these rules, and then they're sustaining it. And you know, if we look at some of the neighbors around there, they're having a lot more cases. But Denmark seems to have this under much better control than the others. So you know, no magic, just you know, smart policy applied early and adhered to over time, and that seems to work.
So they have about 3,300 cases with about 120 deaths, but they seem to be flattening the curve, as you are saying. So, I mean, when would we say that a country did well and a country did not do so well in terms of the numbers?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the numbers only tell some of the story. And we can see places, for example, like South Korea, where early on in the epidemic in South Korea, they just had a massive rise in cases. And it looked like it was going to get out of control very quickly in South Korea. And South Korea was really smart as well. They also, they also rapidly implemented some very good changes. And they really adhered to physical distancing measures. They also harnessed technology quite well. to identify where hotspots were and to really inform the general public about what to do, how to behave, where to go, where not to go. They were, the first global leader in widespread diagnostic testing and in identifying people who were positive and their close contacts, and ensuring that those individuals were in isolation. And what they were able to do is, after they saw this rapid rise in cases, they were really able to quickly flatten their curve. I think the other place that did a remarkable job is Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Taiwan took this very seriously from the beginning. They even sent a delegation over to Wuhan early on to really assess the situation for themselves. And they realized that this was going to be a big problem. So they also started taking it very seriously. And again, we look at Taiwan, it is literally a stone's throw away from mainland China. There's a ton of interconnectivity between mainland China and Taiwan. And if you look at the numbers in Taiwan, they've done many things right to keep it under control there. So there's a lot of great examples of how to manage this.
Dr. Isaac, you mentioned Denmark and Taiwan. They took it very serious from the beginning. What about the state, the United States? Now the numbers getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's really tragic watching this unfold in the United States. And, it's been pretty clear from the beginning that they have had lots of challenges. Sadly, we all knew this was coming, right? We all saw what was happening in China. We were all given maybe about a 2-month window or so to prepare for this. And, simple things, I guess it's not that simple, but really, for example, let's talk about diagnostic testing. Diagnostic testing is one of the pillars of management. It is one of the pillars of ensuring that you have a proper response to this epidemic. And there were bureaucratic hurdles, logistic hurdles, economic hurdles, just lots of barriers to even get diagnostic testing up and running and scaled in the United States. And I would even say now there's still hurdles to diagnostic testing in the United States. This is going to be remedied quickly, but it's it's April, and many places were able to do this in February, for example. So I think that was one of the issues. The other issue is that we know healthcare in the United States is pretty fractionated, and some people have excellent access to healthcare, and some people have moderate access to healthcare, and some people have no access to healthcare. And there's some people have tremendous barriers to healthcare. And this is the kind of infection where it doesn't matter who it affects. If it affects anybody in your population, it's a problem for the entire population. So just by virtue of having, incredible access to healthcare for some individuals, that doesn't mean they're protected. Everybody really needs to have good access to healthcare and preventative health in order for the whole population to be safe from this. And I think that has been exposed throughout the course of this pandemic, especially in the United States.
Dr. Isaac, here in Kuwait, we acted so early, in which we shut the borders on March 14th, although we had about 100 cases in which all of them were travel related. Now we have about 300 cases, about 15 of them without travel history. We have a partial lockdown in place now. What advice can you give us and when we can lower restrictions?
So, I've done a little bit of reading on Kuwait, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. Kuwait's done a lot of things right, and I think Kuwait certainly looks like it may take the path of the more successful countries like the Taiwans and the South Koreas and the Denmarks, where they took it seriously from the very beginning. Certainly, these measures in place that facilitate physical distancing are superb, right? Schools have been closed down, mosques have been closed down. There's support, for example, for elderly individuals to really enable them to stay at home where other people can help them out with basic needs. There's hand sanitizers, for example, in public places like grocery stores. There's the curfew in place for 5 p.m. So these are all excellent strategies, and it looks like it looks like, based on what I can see in the media, it looks like people are adhering to them. So, when we take a step back and we look at, 2 years from now, we're talking about how countries did and how, countries that had an easier time and countries that had a rougher time. It looks like Kuwait is on the path to having an easier time. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying relative to the rest of the world, it looks like it's faring a little bit better. I don't think it's time to be complacent, though. And now is certainly not the time to pat ourselves on the back and say we're doing a great job, because this is where the hard part begins. This is where the hard part begins, because now this has to be sustained. And it's tough.
Go ahead.
It's tough on an individual level, right? People are having a hard time staying at home. It's very hard to be physically distant from our friends and neighbors. We have to try our best to stay socially connected through the phone and through video chats. So it's tough at the individual. It's also extremely tough on businesses and the economy. And of course, it's not hard to find the tremendous economic toll that this is taking on small businesses, on large businesses. Of course, it's tough on the government as well, and coordinating these efforts. This takes tremendous resources. And you really need to maintain this message that you need buy-in from your community. So Kuwait's doing, I think, a remarkable job so far. But, as tough as it sounds, just in Kuwait, just like in the rest of the world, when these curves have started to get flattened, unfortunately, this is where the hard part actually starts, because now you have to maintain this. And once you see a sustained reduction in cases, then and only then can you start to really lift some of these restrictions. Ever so slightly. You have to expect to see a rebound in the number of cases, and hopefully you can control that rebound in the number of cases. Really, what are we doing here? We're delaying. This is all we're doing. We're just delaying. And we're delaying until we get a vaccine that's going to be available, and that's not going to be for 12 to 18 months. But of course, we have to be very careful about when they're lifted and to what extent they're lifted. And I don't think anyone's going to say, okay, we're done. We're going to lift all these. What you're going to see is when they decide to lift it, they're going to gradually lift some of these restrictions. So maybe they start with the curfew. Maybe they start with allowing some people to get back to work. This would be a gradual approach and done in a controlled manner, so that they can still ensure that they are able to identify and isolate people in that expected second wave of infections that will happen if these restrictions are lifted.
Now, what is the true case fatalities? We know that in the middle of the epidemic, we cannot come up with an accurate case fatality percentage. But according to Dr. Fauci, in his New England Journal article in the end of February, he mentioned 1% case fatality. We are seeing a variation in the case fatalities between countries. So, for example, in South Korea and Germany, the fatalities were very low. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, let's book an appointment to chat with each other in 2 years from now, because then I'll be able to look you in the eye and tell you at the straight face what the global case fatality rate is and what the case fatality rate is for each country. But we just don't know. Of course, there's a range. There is a range, and that range is anywhere from about 0.5 to about 2%, depending on the data you read, depending on the country you're in, depending on the situation of the data being collected. And at the end of the day, I think when we have a much better understanding of what is the true number of people that were actually infected with this, then and only then will we have a better understanding of what the case fatality rate is. Certainly in countries that have done more widespread diagnostic testing, I think we have a more accurate picture of what this is. But even in those countries, there are some limitations, because we know that the numbers that are reported are not entirely reflective of the true number of people that were infected with this virus. And a lot of these calculations are just being done on reported numbers of cases and modeling of the suspected cases. But soon we'll have serologic assays and a serologic study. And what a serologic study does is it answers the question, have you ever had this infection, yes or no? Okay, it doesn't tell you if you're infected right now. It answers the question, were you ever infected with this virus, yes or no? And when we can deploy these tests broadly over a population, we can answer the question, who truly had this infection? And then we can have a much better understanding of the proportion of people that died from this infection. I'm just going to guess here, and prove me wrong, prove me wrong, prove me wrong. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a case fatality rate when we consider everything all together. It's probably going to be something in the lines of, maybe about a 0.6 to a 0.8%. That's my guess. I could totally be wrong. But, I think that that would be more reflective of seeing widespread infection that we're just not accounting for, plus the serious cases as well. And let's be clear, that's a high case fatality rate. That, people think, oh, it's less than 1%, but that's still a high case fatality rate. That's purely a guess. And I'm, of course, open to, data coming in. And I obviously, I hope that it's much lower than that, but let's see.
Dr. Isaac, China reported that as many as 14% of those who had recovered of coronavirus got reinfected. Can we say that becoming infected does not give the kind of immunity?
No, I think we have to be pretty cautious interpreting that data. Obviously, it's hard to know what was driving that data. It may be because people were doing repeat testing and using this PCR test, which just looks to see if there's virus there. But remember, virus can be present, but people can have still recovered from the infection because people can be shedding virus for days and days and days after they've recovered from an infection. And sometimes that virus doesn't even grow. It might not even be what we say viable virus. So I'm a little skeptical of that, and I definitely want to see more data about reinfection. So the short answer is we don't actually have an answer to this, but many people believe, and currently the prevailing thought is that once you've been infected with this virus, you are likely, so once you've been infected with this virus and have recovered from the infection, you are likely to be immune to this infection, at least for the foreseeable future, likely throughout the course of this pandemic. Now, we know that viruses change with time. That's got a word, that word is called mutation. When people hear the word mutation, they get scared. They think it's going to get worse, it's going to get more dangerous, but that's not the case. Mutation just means the viruses change with time, and all viruses change with time. All viruses mutate, and it doesn't mean that it gets worse and it makes people sicker. But what might happen is that, and again, I have to preface this with, we don't know. This is just the prevailing theory right now. Someone gets infected with COVID-19, they recover from the infection, they will likely mount an immune response and likely be not able to get infected with this for the foreseeable future. And of course, at some point in the future, after the course of this pandemic, the virus might change to a little bit and be slightly different from the one that infected them, or their immunity might go down with a little bit of time, and maybe people are prone to getting reinfected, a year later or something like that. This is again purely theoretical, but this is the prevailing theory now. Of course, we're all open to data. We're all open to changing our opinions, but currently that seems to be the scientific consensus.
Now, just coming to the last question, do you have any updates from research that you think is important to share with the public?
Yeah, there are some pretty helpful updates, and a lot of the research updates are still unanswered, but gives us a lot of hope. I'm very excited about the global coordination in looking for treatments and prevention strategies for this infection. So right now, across the world, there are at least 5 different drugs that are being tested currently in clinical trials to see if this can really help people infected with this virus recover quicker. And the beautiful thing is that this isn't just one hospital or 2 hospitals doing it. There really is a global coordinated strategy, so we can recruit large numbers of people and answer these questions. So I think in the coming months, we're going to have much better answers as to, what drugs can we use to treat this infection. The other thing I'm actually very excited about is what's called prophylaxis studies. And there's many studies underway that are looking at the question, if I'm exposed to the virus, can I take a drug, can I take a pill that will actually prevent me from getting sick with this infection as well? And I mean, this would be extremely helpful. So if we can even prevent people from getting this infection, that would be very helpful as well. So those trials are underway too, and I'm very excited about them because I think we should start to see early data and evidence in the next 6 to 8 weeks, because they are actively recruiting patients globally.
Well, that's good to hear that we will get something in 6 to 8 weeks. But what are they using for prophylaxis? What is promising in terms of prophylaxis?
Well, so I have to be very cautious because we don't have any data yet, but there's many different drugs that are being trialed. One of the ones that people might be aware of is chloroquine, or its related drug hydroxychloroquine is one. Another drug is an antiviral drug. It's called lopinavir and ritonavir, so it's 2 antiviral drugs mixed together as one. Those are just 2 examples of drugs that are being used in the prophylaxis studies.
Dr. Isaac, my last question, although I know that you don't have a clear answer for that, but how long do you think we will live under the threat of this virus?
Oh my God, I wish I had an answer to that, but I think, in short, I think that countries that are really controlling this well, like Kuwait, for example, may start to see a gradual lift in these public health restrictions. But I truly don't think we're going to see a return to normal life as we know it until there is the wide-scale implementation of an effective vaccine. And I really think that that's a minimum of a year away. But then and only then can we be confident that this virus is not going to come back and really impact our countries and our populations.
Well, unfortunately, a year is going to be too long. Dr. Isaac Bogosh from Toronto, we really enjoy talking to you. Thank you and stay safe.
Love chatting with you guys as well. Have a great day, and again, stay safe and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
You too. يعني أنا كنت شوية متفائل في بداية اللقاء، خصوصا لما نتكلم عن الإجراءات الاحترازية المبكرة اللي صارت يمكن في تايوان اللي ذكرها، وفي الدنمارك، وتكلم أيضا عن الكويت، وتكلم عن سنغافورة. بس في آخر اللقاء لما قال أن الحياة ما راح ترجع طبيعية حسب تقديره الأولي إلا بعد سنة، يعني خلاني شوية
يعني أنا أعتقد هو قصده ترجع طبيعية 100%، بس في شيء يدعو للتفاؤل قال، اللي هو قال خلال 6 إلى 8 أسابيع راح نلقى نتائج مو بس في العلاج. هذه أول مرة باللقاء نتكلم عن البروفيلاكسس، وهو منع حدوث المرض. بمعنى إذا شخص معرض إنه يصير فيه المرض، مثلا طلع بالشارع وراح مكان مزدحم مثلا وخذ، هل في دواء ياخذ الشخص بحيث إنه ما يصاب أساسا بالفيروس بعد ما زادت احتمالية إصابته؟ فيبدو أن هناك دراسات الآن على الوقاية، ومثل ما قال خلال 6 إلى 8 أسابيع راح نوصل إلى بعض النتائج من الناحية. إذا وصلنا حق نتائج أبحاث خلال شهر شهرين على العلاجات، علاج فعال وقوي مثبت بحثيا، ووصلنا إلى نتيجة ممتازة في بحث يبين الوقاية ووجود أدوية للوقاية، هني راح أعتقد راح تتغير قواعد معركتنا مع الكورونا خلال انتظارنا إلى التطعيم. طبعا الأساس هو انتظار التطعيم، وهو الشيء اللي راح يحدث النقلة النوعية في المعركة، ولكن وجود علاج فعال ومثبت ووجود دواء وقائي فعال ومثبت، هذا أيضا راح يكونون يعني
أمور على الأقل في تقليل
جدا
حدة انتشار هذا الوباء. يعني إن شاء الله اليوم نكون احنا هم يعني قدمنا جرعة علمية في لقائنا مع الدكتور آيزاك للسادة المشاهدين.
والشيء الجميل الثاني أن إجراءاتنا في الكويت نفس ما ذكرها وتبحر فيها قليلا، يبدو أنها إجراءات ممتازة تضاهي أفضل الدول، بحيث أنه راح نوصل إن شاء الله إلى مرحلة ممتازة. فهذا دعوة حق المشاهدين أن يلتزمون بهذه الإجراءات. صح هي متعبة، ولكن قاعد تعطي نتيجة الآن وستعطي نتيجة في المستقبل.
واللي يمكن طبقناه في الكويت يمكن حتى ضاهينا فيها الإجراءات اللي تم اتخاذها يمكن في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، لأنهم تأخروا.
نعم، أفضل من
ما أخذوا الموضوع بشكل جدي في البدايات. والحين يمكن عشان كذا قاعدين نشوف الأرقام قاعدة تتزايد بشكل كبير وكبير.
صحيح. ومشكلة الولايات المتحدة العظمى نفس ما ذكرها الأكسس تو كير، قدرة الدخول على المستشفى،
النظام الصحي هم
النظام الصحي مو أي واحد يقدر يروح أي مكان. مو نفسنا احنا الكويت تغطي كل الموجودين. خطاب صاحب السمو ذكر انه وجه مجلس الوزراء لرعاية المواطن والوافد والزائر، كل من على الكويت مغطى في النظام الصحي ويعالج إذا مرض.
بس أهم شيء حتى نعاون الجهات الرسمية في الدولة ونعبر ان شاء الله بر الامان هذا الوباء، نلتزم مره ثانيه.
نعم.
الجلوس في المنزل. الاستاذ المشارك في كليه الطب دكتور محمد جمال، كل الشكر لك.
شكرا ابو العزيز.
شكر موصول لكم مشاهدينا الكرام. ناكد على الكلام اللي في كل لقاء قاعدين نقوله، واليوم ايضا اكد ضيفنا من كندا ان الاجراءات اللي قاعد تقوم فيها الدوله بالكويت اجراءات جدا جيده وجدا متقدمه، لكن هذا ما يمنع ان ايضا نستمر في التزامنا بتعليمات وزاره الصحه، وان نقعد في البيت اكثر. جلوسنا في البيت اكثر راح يقلل فترة عبورنا إن شاء الله في هذه الأزمة بشكل أسرع. نحتاج نقعد في البيت أكثر ونلتزم تعليمات وزارة الصحة. الله يحفظكم من كل شر إن شاء الله. نشوفكم على خير في أمان الله.